All right. Hey everyone, this is Alex Knight. I'm your instructor for the Artist Management course, and you may have noticed that the online instructors were starting to include these sort of weekly lessons to give you a just some general takeaways from the class, some things that we kind of cover in our campus classes. And so for the week one example, I wanted to give you a lesson. This is actually a story that is really sort of a pivotal moment in my career, and I wanted to share it with you guys, particularly since you are going to be diving into the target market research and analysis in assignment one. So the thing I'm going to talk about is a moment from my own career, a particular instance involving my band and another band. So the point of time when this actually occurred, my band was kind of just getting our feet up under us, I guess. We've been touring for a little while. We had a very reputable booking agent, someone who was well known in the industry and had a lot of high-powered other bands that he booked. But he had just recently started booking us, so I would say that my band was drawing maybe about 100 kids a night or so at this point in time. I had also simultaneously been taking some business classes. I was going to get just a traditional business degree, not a music business degree. I didn't know the Full Sail was a place, although I wish that I had. So I was going to this traditional college. They kind of didn't know what to do with me, honestly. They were sort of like, like I would tell them things like, I want to do an assignment using a business model that's a music venue. And they were like, well, that's cool, but we don't really, this is the instructors talking to me, like they didn't really know anything about like how to book artists or, how to manage those kinds of contracts or that aspect of the industry. They only knew how to set up the business and all that stuff. So they kind of didn't know what to do with me. So here I am. And I was probably, super early 20s, and I'm trying to figure out what's happening with the work that I'm doing in school in terms of this target market, target audience research, and how that actually correlates to my real career that was happening simultaneously in the music industry. And I'm not really connecting the dots. So my band is out there, and we haven't really applied anything about target market research or any of the stuff that you guys probably at this point in the program are waking up screaming about in the middle of the night, just yelling target market or whatever it is. And so I'm not making that correlation. We're out there touring anyways and doing the thing. And at this point in our career, I'll be totally honest with you, we were taking any show that came our way. And I still know a lot of young artists that take that approach where they'll take any, it's the sort of like any show is a good show. Any money is good money, which sounds logical until you really start to think about it and really actually get out there and get in it. And I'll tell you, like as someone who's been in the industry for a while now, I don't subscribe to that belief. I don't think that any show is a good show or any money is good money. I think you can be a lot more strategic about what you're doing, and that sometimes taking short-term money can actually cost you money in the long term. So here's what I mean by that. My band was from Northern Alabama. We had a singer who was very poppy. Like he had a voice like I would compare it to like Justin Timberlake or like the guy from Maroon 5 or something along those lines. My band did not sound like that, and most of our influences weren't really up that alley. A lot of our influences were pop punk or indie rock or things like that. So we were more this like rock centric band with this very poppy singer. But a lot of our friends and a lot of the people that liked our band were in the metal scene. We knew a lot of people that played hardcore, a lot of people that played metal. And because of that, we kept getting all these metal offers, so we would get offered to play a metal festival in Iowa or whatever. So we would hop in the van and we would drive to Iowa and we would play this metal festival where not only were people like not really there to see us or didn't really care about us, but they would actively dislike us because we weren't the right kind of music for them, But we had that mentality of any show's a good show, any money's good money, And then meanwhile, we have no shot at turning any of those audience members into long-term fans. Nobody was adding us on social media after the show. Nobody was buying our merchandise. Our guarantee was less money than what we were putting into our gas tank. So we'd get home and we lost money and we didn't gain any fans, So here's kind of where I'm leading with this. So the story that I was going to tell you. if you paid, if you saw my intro video, I can't recall if I mentioned this or not, but my band was co-managed by a couple of guys in a band called A Day to Remember. If you're not familiar with The Day to Remember, they're pretty big in the pop punk world, but they actually have this crossover appeal where they can play hardcore shows, they can play with like metal bands and stuff and do just fine, and they did it for years, because they have some really heavy stuff that's like not exactly as radio friendly as some of their other material, so they crossed over really well. And a couple of those guys in the band, in A Day to Remember, actually took a liking to our band and brought us on board, and they were some of the first people to really give us an opportunity. And like I said, they were co-managing us, and we shared a booking agent. So the guy who was actually booking their shows was booking our shows. All right, so let's get to the story. So we're at this point in time, I would say A Day to Remember was probably drawing maybe 300-400 kids a night or so. It was definitely much earlier than where they're at now. Now they're headlining major festivals and stuff like that. But at this point in their career, they're selling out small clubs and things like that. So our booking agent hit us up and he said, "Hey, I'm gonna be on the road with A Day to Remember, and I'm checking out a few of their shows and kind of getting a vibe of like how things are going. And I saw that the tour that I'm routing for you guys is actually crossing paths with them in Georgia. So he was like, you want me to just put you on the show, and that way I can check out your stage show as well and kind of see how things are going and stuff." And in all honesty, he had much bigger acts on his roster that he was probably more worried about than us at that point in time. And we weren't giving any thought to what kinds of shows like I mentioned that we were trying to do. So we were just like, yeah, throw us on there. Those guys are our friends. It'll be a fun time. It'll be whatever. We'll party afterwards. Ha ha ha, And so he puts us on the bill. And so we roll up to the show in Georgia. And when we get to the venue, there's a line of kids out the door, because A Day to Remember packed the place out. So we're driving up and we're looking at this line of kids outside. I say kids, they're whatever, anywhere from probably 14 to early 20s or something. And if you had asked me at that point in time who I thought my band's target audience was, I would have pointed at those people and just been like, yeah, something like that. Looks like the general age range. I don't know why you need this information, like they're wearing clothes like what I think our audience would wear, whatever. That's probably them, And this is where I'm going to try to impart to you like why I think this stuff matters so much more than you may even realize at this point. So at that point in time, it was really easy to find local bands that were metal acts. I don't know what it was. I'll be totally honest with you. I think part of it is because it was harder to find people that could sing as well as someone like our singer could, that wanted to play the type of music that we were. But there were just metal bands everywhere, just people, screaming and stuff. And there were just a lot of them. And if any of you guys have ever put on shows before, you may be familiar with this, where what you do is you have your headliner, and maybe like another band that's on a tour package with them, and then it's kind of your job to fill out the rest of that bill with local acts or other people that you can find, and you want those local acts to kind of match up with the headliner, because the hope is that each of those groups has an opportunity to kind of win over some of the audience that shows up that night. The headliner can win over the friends and family of the local acts, and then the local acts can maybe catch some of the headliners' crowd and have like a bigger audience, So that's exactly what happened here. We pull up to the show and we look at the bill and we see local metal band, my band that got compared to Justin Timberlake and Maroon 5 and all these other, other popular acts, mixed with some pop punk. And then A Day to Remember was the headliner. But we didn't think it was weird at that point in time. Like I said, we were just taking any show that came our way. So we just looked at it like, no, that's what we're working with. That's the kind of stuff that we do. But in reality, we stuck out like a sore thumb. So the way that the venue was set up, you have like your front door up here, and then it's just like a big, square building basically. And then you've got the stage down in the back. So front door, stage at the back. Along the wall where the front door is, you've got merch tables, you've got a concession stand, bathrooms are all over there. But basically, if you're going to get from the front door to the stage, it was just wall-to-wall people. So there was no way to get there easily. And I mention that because they had one security guard working this particular show, not even a security guard, he was just a bouncer for the club. And I think that based on the number of people that were there, they probably should have had at least one other form of security. I'm just saying that based on my experience putting together events myself. But they didn't. They just had the one the one bouncer at the door. So first couple bands play, and then we get on stage and we go to play. Our booking agent stands kind of at the back of the stage on the side, and he wants to watch our set. And then the two guys from A Day to Remember, who were part of our management team, wanted to watch our set too. So they hop up on the side of the stage and they're watching our set. Like I said, we were pulling about 100 kids a night or so. So we, the front chunk of the audience is all there for us. I don't know if you guys have ever been on stage or anything before, but it's a little different than what people may think. Like it's kind of disorienting, disorienting. Flashing lights, colored lights, tons of cords on the ground that you're trying not to trip over. People blasting fog machines, which I hate. They smell terrible. People always overuse fog machines so you can't see anything, and then you get smashed in the face with a guitar or whatever. And that's kind of what this situation was. I could see a little bit of the audience up front, but I wasn't entirely aware of, like, by the point that you got to like the middle of the audience, it was a little fuzzy out there, so I couldn't figure it out. But we started playing the set, and then we hear like a couple people shout out some stuff after one of the songs, and it wasn't friendly stuff, So I'm kind of like looking around, and there's one group of guys in the middle of the audience, just dead center in the middle of the venue, that was just not feeling the fact that we're crashing their metal show. So you may know guys like this that are just kind of taking out their anger at their parents on us or whatever it was. But that's part of that lifestyle. If you're a performer of any kind, you may be familiar with that, and that was something that we were used to. We had a big energetic stage show. We were good. I'll be honest, we were a good live band, so we could win over people that weren't necessarily fans of our type of music. But you always deal with those. There's always a handful of those, and you have to deal with hecklers and that kind of stuff. So those guys yell a couple things. Our singer yells a couple things back, or says it into the mic, he just kind of jokes back at them or whatever. And then we just keep going. We keep playing and keep on going with the set. Get a little bit further into it, the guys get a little bit more worked up and they yell some more stuff, and now they're getting louder, and now the stuff is getting, like it's got an angrier tone to it. And so our singer makes another couple jokes and stuff. And now I'm looking for the guy. I'm like playing guitar, and I'm just kind of like, what is going on here? And I see, I've seen this group of guys. And there's one dude in particular, backwards hat, and just upset, and he's really like while we're playing, even though we can't hear him while we're playing the song, he is like, I see like spit flying out of his mouth because he's like blah 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 blah, and just like all worked up and yelling towards the stage, and some people around were kind of looking at him like, what is this guy's deal? Get a little bit further into the set. Now this guy's like, I remember he whipped some like a pack of crackers at us or something, not knowing that we were probably just going to scoop that up and eat it later because it's hard to find food when you're on tour. But yeah, he does that. He gets up on his friend's shoulders. And so now he's sitting on this dude's shoulders, and he's like flicking us off, and he's just like just making a big spectacle, and we're just playing like whoa, what is this dude's deal? And then, the guys from A Day to Remember side stage are just kind of like, we're looking at them and they're looking at us like, I don't know, people are weird. So I get a little bit further into the set, and I look up, and this guy is reaching for, so there was a disco ball hanging from the center of this club. And the dude reaches, he's like leaning forward, like he's trying to grab this disco ball, and his friend's got him on his shoulders, kind of like pushed him forward too, And so he kind of goes for it. And I don't know, that lifestyle is so weird that I honestly didn't think it was that unusual, and I just kind of went about my business. I was like, well, I guess this guy's going to swing from a disco ball now, and I'm like on over here playing the guitar. But I do, so I remember at one point, I hit a chord on my guitar, I turn around to my amp, and I'm kind of like fiddling with some knobs on the amp, trying to fix some settings or whatever. And all of a sudden the ground shakes, and I was like, whoa, what happened? So I whip around, and this dude has torn the disco ball from the ceiling and like pulled the wires out of it, and he like threw it up on stage at us. And we got lucky. I don't know if you guys have ever felt a disco ball or not. It's a weird question, but they look like toys, but they're no joke. They're like heavy glass, like, you know. And he took a big chunk out of the floor, like it hit the floor and like took a big chunk out of the stage. And luckily didn't hit our gear, didn't hit us or anything like that. But it was still like I turned around and I'm trying to process, like, while I'm playing the song, I'm like, well, you know, what just happened here? And I'm like looking, and I see this blur out of the corner of my eyes. And the two guys from A Day to Remember hopped out into the audience, and they're just beating the hell out of this kid in the middle of the audience. They're just like wailing on him, just punching his face. And and everybody in the audience knows who those two guys are because they're probably there to see their band. So not only did they not stop it or break it up, but they kind of formed a circle, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's that," you know, and they're like taking pictures or whatever. And we're just on stage, just like, well, what do we do? You know, we're just playing the song, just going with it, and we're like, you know, essentially playing the soundtrack to this kid getting his face punched by his favorite band, probably. And so it was just this weird, bizarre situation. And you know, they cleared it out. They finally dragged the kid out by the time the security guard gets there. Like, we're almost done with our set, but they dragged this kid out. We finish our set. A Day to Remember plays. It's all fun and games. So after the show, we hang out and we laugh about it. That was crazy. Can't believe it happened. Ha ha ha. You know. All right. Next day, you know, my band is supposed to go off this way while A Day to Remember goes off this way on their tour. So we're parting directions. And our booking agent hits us up, and he's like, hey guys, we need to like meet for lunch before you guys hit the road, and let's talk about what happened yesterday. And I was like, oh, like I thought we were gonna get sued or something weird like that. But that's not where this is going. That's not what happened. So we meet our booking agent for lunch, and our booking agent was one of those guys who, like, every memory I have of him, let me grab my phone for this. Every memory that I have of our booking agent, he looks like this. You know, it's just, I see the top of his head and him typing on his phone. It didn't matter if it was 8 a.m. or 2 a.m. or, you know, 5 p.m. That's what he was doing. But we sat down for lunch, and he actually put his phone down on the table for a second. And I was like, uh-oh, like, this is serious. But instead, he got a little sort of, I don't know what the right word, like existential maybe, like, with it or something like that. He just got a little heady, where he was just like, what are we doing with you guys, man? Like, I feel like we need to put some more strategy into your career. And so to tie this all in a bow here, this is the moment where everything clicked for me, because he started saying things that I'd been hearing in class. He was like, who do you think your ideal fan is? Who is your target audience? Like, who do you want listening to your music and loving your band? Because right now we're just throwing you out in front of people and hoping for the best. But let's find like who those actual ideal people are, and let's make an effort, you know, a concentrated effort to get in front of them. And so we started thinking about, like, and he asked us, he was like, what do you think was different about that kid in the audience that night that makes him not fit in with who your ideal fan is? And then who do you think your ideal fan is, and where do they differ? You know, and that's really what the crux of the conversation was. And we're like, like, I hadn't thought about it, because like I told you guys before, like, I thought he would have been a member of our target audience, but clearly he wasn't. He's probably watching different kinds of shows. He's probably watching different kinds of movies. He's definitely listening to different kinds of bands. He's definitely going to different kinds of live concert, you know, experiences and stuff like that. It's, you know, our target audience isn't just fans of live music or something like that. It was a very specific kind, you know. And I'm telling you guys, that one instance changed everything in our career, because what happened was we figured out who these people were, and it changed the websites that we advertised through. It changed the types of publications that we were trying to get features from. It changed who we toured with. So up until that point, we just kind of took whatever our booking agent threw us on. But after that moment, we started doing this thing where we're like, okay, well, in a dream world, in an ideal situation, who would we love to tour with, you know? And then we actually started looking at, like, okay, so-and-so is going on tour this fall. That would be a dream tour for us. Could we actually get on it? And then we would take that to our booking agent. We would say, we would love to play this particular tour. We think their audience is the same as ours, and blah, blah, blah. And he would use his clout and his name to get us on those bills. And so what we started seeing happening was we'd find out that we would get get this particular tour in August. And then in the meantime, we were targeting these publications for features. So a feature would drop about us in July, and then we'd land a couple of other interviews in late July, and then we would have landed this great tour in August that we're the opening act for. And now people knew us from these couple of features, and we were getting a little bit of buzz around us. And then it was like, go see them on tour with so-and-so. And now all of a sudden we look more credible, and then more people were coming to those shows. And then after those shows, people would follow us on social media. And it was just this cycle that really sped up. And look, again, I'm telling you, what would have probably taken us like 3 years to do in terms of the amount of buzz that we built around our band, we condensed into like a year, because we started making smarter decisions based on our target audience research. So when you're diving into this stuff in your assignments, in assignment 1 here, and you're doing this research, even in your other classes, don't just roll your eyes and be like, oh, more target market research. Start thinking about, what am I going to do with this information? How is this going to shape my decision making? And particularly if you want to be an artist manager, that's where that's where the meat is in this industry. Who is my audience, and how do I really utilize that information to shape the decisions that I'm making on behalf of my artist? So that's this week's lesson. I hope you enjoyed my guy got punched in the face story, but more importantly, I hope you see how you're actually going to be using this information to shape your decision making. So I'll see you again next week, and I look forward to seeing your assignments. All right, take care.